My name is Lorraine Hayes. I'm 66 years old, a retired librarian from Plainfield, Illinois. Until that Tuesday afternoon, I thought I had already faced the hardest things life could throw at me. I lost my husband, Thomas, 8 years ago, a heart attack that took him suddenly, right in our kitchen. For years after, I lived inside a silence that only widows understand, the kind of silence that sits beside you at dinner and sleeps beside you at night. I survived that. I thought I understood grief, but I was wrong. That Tuesday began like any other. I made my tea at 3 o'clock sharp, just as I always had, and set it on the small oak table by the window. Outside, the air felt strange, heavy, like the sky was holding its breath. The local radio mumbled something about a storm system moving northeast, but in Illinois, we're used to storms. You listen, you watch, and you carry on. At 3:15, the siren screamed, that long, terrible wail that shakes you right down to your bones. Tornado on the ground, the announcer said, moving toward Will County. Plainfield residents, take shelter, immediately. My hands trembled as I rushed through the house. I grabbed what little I could, our wedding album from 1976, Thomas's old wristwatch, my mother's hand-sewn quilt, a folder of insurance papers, 40 years of a life, reduced to one small suitcase. I stumbled down into the basement, clutching Thomas's wool sweater to my chest. The house groaned above me, with twisting, glass shattering, until it sounded like the world itself was being ripped apart. Then came the roar. Loud, endless, like a freight train tearing through my living room. And then, silence. Not peace, just the hollow quiet that follows destruction. When I opened the basement door, the world I knew no longer existed. My kitchen table was gone, my roof was gone. Above me, only a bruised sky. My rose garden, the one I'd tended for 20 years, lay in shreds, nothing but broken stems and petals. The street was littered with debris, like confetti from a cruel celebration. That's when I finally broke. For the first time since Thomas's funeral, I cried. Great, shaking sobs. I couldn't stop. Neighbors ran over calling my name, but their own houses were torn apart too. The Red Cross mentioned shelters, but the thought of sleeping in a crowded gym made me feel smaller than I already did. I needed family. I needed my son. I borrowed a neighbor's phone and called him. Michael, I whispered, it's Mom. My house is gone. The next morning, I packed my suitcase, 3 trash bags, and what little was left of my life into my old sedan. I drove north toward Chicago. The sky was bright, almost cruelly bright, as if nothing terrible had happened the day before. My car rattled with every gust of wind, and the smell of wet plaster and mud clung to everything. I kept telling myself this was temporary, just until the insurance came through, just until I could find a small apartment. Michael lived in River North, one of those shiny glass towers that look like they belong in magazines. When I pulled up, the doorman glanced at my car and the garbage bags inside. He looked at me like I didn't belong there. He handed me a visitor badge as if I were an intruder. Michael opened the door before I could knock. For a moment, my heart lifted. He had Thomas's eyes, that same deep blue that used to make me feel safe. Mom, he said, stepping aside. His voice was careful, polite, rehearsed. The apartment gleamed white furniture, polished wood floors, art on the walls that looked expensive but not warm. And then she appeared, Tessa, his wife, beautiful, 30-something, every hair in place, dressed in a silk blouse that probably cost more than my monthly pension. She smiled, but her eyes were cold. Lorraine, she said, how awful about your house. Her gaze flicked down to my trash bags. I sat carefully on their perfect white sofa, afraid to leave a stain. It's just temporary, I said quickly. Until the insurance comes through, I can help with meals or laundry. I'll stay out of the way. Michael sat across from me, not beside me. He folded his hands like he was preparing for a business meeting. Mom, he said, Tessa and I have been talking. We value our privacy here. This is our sanctuary. I blinked, certain I'd misheard. Privacy. Michael, I said, I lost everything yesterday. I don't need space. I need family. Tessa leaned forward, her voice soft but firm, the tone you use with a child. We just think you'd be more comfortable somewhere else. There are lovely extended stay hotels near the Magnificent Mile. Very safe, very clean. I felt my chest tighten. And how am I supposed to pay for that? The insurance money won't come for weeks. Michael shifted. Uncomfortably, I can give you a few hundred to get started. A few hundred, as if decades of motherhood could be settled like a bill. I stood slowly, my knees aching, my pride gone. So that's it, I whispered. Your mother doesn't belong in your sanctuary. Neither of them spoke, and that silence hurt more than the storm. I drove away from River North that night with my 3 trash bags rattling in the back seat. The city skyline glittered ahead like a wall of glass, keeping me out. I parked under Lower Wacker Drive, that dark, echoing stretch beneath the city, where no one looks too closely. That first night, I curled up in the driver's seat with Thomas's sweater pulled over me. Every car door that slammed, every footstep outside, made me jump. I ate stale crackers from my purse and drank from a half-empty water bottle that tasted like rust. I told myself it was just one night. Tomorrow Michael would call. He'd change his mind. But tomorrow came, and nothing changed. By the second night, the air turned cold. I moved my car to a Walmart parking lot in Cicero, trying to disappear among the overnight trucks. I washed my face in the bathroom under buzzing fluorescent lights, avoiding my own reflection. The woman in the mirror looked like a ghost, hollow eyes, tangled hair, shoulders slumped. I couldn't recognize the mother who once hosted birthday parties with balloons tied to every chair. By the third night, my back ached so badly I couldn't sleep. I woke at 2 a.m., tears streaming down my face, pressing my hands over my mouth so no one would hear me cry. I thought of Michael as a boy, how he used to hold my hand when we crossed the street, how he'd beg for one more bedtime story. Where had that boy gone? When had he become this man who turned his mother away? I reached into my purse for tissues, and that's when I found it. A thin, faded business card tucked between receipts and expired coupons. The edges were soft from years of being carried, the ink smudged, but still legible. Adrian Cole, my first love, the boy who once promised to build me a life beyond Plainfield, before college took him away and life pulled us in different directions. We lost touch, but somehow, I'd never thrown that card away. Through marriages and funerals and decades of dust, it stayed with me. I traced the numbers with my fingertip. Did they still connect to anything at all? Was he even still alive? That night, sitting in the dark with rain drumming on the windshield, I held that little card to my chest. And for the first time since the tornado, I felt something dangerous. Hope. I stared at Adrian's name on that faded card until the sunrise turned the windshield gold. Then I did the thing I had been too proud to do for 50 years. I dialed 1, ring 2, a voice, deeper now, weathered at the edges, cold development, Adrian speaking. I almost dropped the phone. That voice folded time in half. Adrian, it's Lorraine. Lorraine Hayes. Back then it was Lorraine Carter. There was a heartbeat of silence, and then, very softly, like saying my name, pulled an old door open. He whispered, Lorraine. Everything I'd been holding together unraveled. My house is gone, I said. Plainfield, the tornado. I tried to stay with my son in Chicago, and I don't have anywhere to go. Where are you right now? He asked. No hesitation. No long pause, full of pity, just action. In a Walmart lot off Cicero, I said. Stay there, he said. I'm coming. Adrian, you don't have to. I've been waiting 50 years for you to call, he said. Please, let me come. 2 hours later, a silver SUV rolled into the lot as if it had been guided by memory. He stepped out, and time did that strange thing again, shrinking and widening all at once. His hair was silver, his shoulders broader, his eyes the same storm gray I remembered. He tapped gently on my window. Hello, Lorraine. I tried to apologize for the wrinkled clothes, for the 3 trash bags, for the smell of loss that had followed me into that car. He cut through the shame with 3 simple words. You look beautiful. I cried then, messy, undignified tears in a Walmart parking lot. He opened the door, helped me stand, and wrapped his arms around me like he was rescuing something important that had washed up after a storm. Come home, he said. Let me take care of you. We drove north toward Lakeview, the city softening into tree-lined streets and porches with old stories in the wood. Adrian pulled into a cobblestone drive in front of a stone house that seemed to grow out of the earth, timber beams, wide windows, a porch that wrapped around like an embrace, not flashy, solid, chosen. Inside, the air smelled like cedar and coffee. Books lined the walls, photographs dotted the hallways, not of yachts or sunsets, but of people, ribbon cuttings, new roofs, families standing in front of houses with paint still drying. Your company? I asked, touching a framed article. Coal redevelopment brings hope to Joliet families. He nodded. Started after a flood in '85, one house at a time. It got bigger than I ever planned, but it's still the same work, helping people find home again. Then he looked at me, a way that made my knees remember being 17. Maybe I built all of this hoping you'd walk through the door someday. He cooked that first night, grilled chicken, green beans with lemon, roasted potatoes that tasted like patience. I hadn't had a real meal in days. The first bite made my eyes sting. I shouldn't have called, I murmured. I didn't want to be a burden. Lorraine, he said, covering my hand with his, you could never be a burden. You're the only unfinished chapter I've ever wanted to finish. I'm not the girl you remember. No, he said, smiling. You're better. You're real. You've lived, and you're still standing. Something inside me shifted, like a locked window lifting. When I rose to thank him after dinner, he walked me to the hallway and simply said, "Stay here, as long as you need. No clocks, no conditions. This house has been waiting for you." And I believed him. Days slid into a gentle rhythm I didn't know my heart still remembered. Mornings, coffee on the porch, the lake catching light like a handful of coins. Afternoons, his library sun pools on the rug. Me reading books I used to shelve for other people. Evenings I cooked again, my hands remembering how to fold dough, how to season by listening to the smell. He ate everything with a gratitude that lit up those gray eyes. He didn't treat me like a guest or a problem to solve. He treated me like a necessary part of his day, the way you treat sunlight when you finally get it back. One quiet morning, while washing blueberries, he said it almost casually, "Would you ever consider making this permanent?" My heart skipped like a scratched record. I didn't answer. Not then, but I carried the question around like a warm stone in my pocket. Phone rang a week later. Michael's name glowed on the screen. I let it ring. Then I picked up. "Mom," he said, voice careful, as if lined up on a legal pad. "I've been trying to reach you. Where are you?" "I'm with a friend," I said, calm, factual, true. "A friend. Mrs. Patterson said you weren't at the extended stay anymore. Who are you with?" I looked around Adrian's kitchen, flowers in a mason jar, a sweater of mine folded neatly over a chair. "Someone who doesn't see me as a burden." Silence crackled across the line. Then, maybe you could stay in our guest room after all. Tessa and I have been rethinking things. Those words should have soothed. Instead, they went through me like cold air. Where was this offer when I slept sitting up in a parking lot? Adrian suggested dinner. "Let them come," he said softly. "Let's see what's true." They arrived with a gift bag of scented candles, tissue paper whispering like it had been rehearsed. At the table, Michael kept angling the conversation toward Adrian's business. "Real estate must be fascinating," he said. "I handle insurance portfolios. Maybe there's synergy." Adrian listened, polite as a closing door. His jaw flexed in a way I now knew meant, "I understand you completely." When the dishes were cleared, he folded his hands and looked at my son the way a bridge looks at the river below it. "I want to talk about Lorraine," he said, "and the way you treated her." Michael's shoulders went rigid. "I don't know what you mean." "You do," Adrian said, calm, not unkind. "She lost everything. She came to you. You turned her away. She slept in her car while you enjoyed your sanctuary." Tessa's smile slipped. Michael flushed the color of an apology that couldn't find words. "We thought it would be better." "Better for whom?" Adrian asked, not raising his voice. "Certainly not for Lorraine." I felt my pulse in my throat, but I didn't interrupt. I wanted the truth spoken out loud where it could stop hiding. "And now," Adrian continued, "your interest in her has returned, right alongside your interest in my assets." He held Michael's gaze. "Lorraine doesn't need conditions or protection. She needs love. If you can't offer that, you have no place here." Michael's voice rose, brittle. "So I don't care about my own mother." Adrian's reply was quiet, devastating. "I'm saying you care more about what you think she might inherit than about who she is. That isn't love. It's opportunism." I finally spoke. "The night of the tornado," I said, my voice steady and breaking at once. "I needed a son. You chose yourself." The room went very still. "That's something I won't pretend didn't happen." Michael pushed back from the table. He muttered about being insulted. He left. Tessa followed, her heels clicking like punctuation. The door closed. The house exhaled. My phone buzzed. An email from the Plainfield Land Trust. Redevelopment approved. Priority granted to displaced residents. Project overseen by Coal Redevelopment. I turned to Adrian, stunned. You didn't tell me. He met my eyes, steady. I didn't want you to think any of this was pity. My firm won the bid the same way we always do, but I made sure the plan protects the families who lost everything. That includes you, Lorraine. Your right to return is guaranteed. Tears blurred the screen into a smear of light. The boy who once promised me the world had shown up as a man who could help give it back. October came dressed in red and gold. In Adrian's backyard, the lake glittered like a witness. Why kept it small? A few rows of white chairs, Maria from the house, Thomas, Adrian's business partner, and the minister who had known them both since college. I wore a simple navy dress. He wore a charcoal suit that made him look like the good kind of forever. When he took my hands, I felt 17, standing at a quarry with a boy who swore he'd come back. We promised what we could promise. Patience, laughter, the truth. When the minister said husband and wife, he kissed me gently, like returning a library book that had been overdue for half a century. Michael came to the ceremony alone. He stood at the back, not the front. Afterward, he approached, shifting from foot to foot the way boys do when the answer might be no. Mom, he said, voice rough, I'm sorry for everything. I touched his arm. I forgive you, I said. But forgiveness doesn't erase consequences. Love me because I'm your mother, not because of what you think I have. He nodded, eyes damp, and for once, he didn't argue. Silence can be a beginning too. Nights on the porch became our ritual. We'd sit shoulder to shoulder while the lake stitched silver lines across the dark. I told him the truth I'd earned. The tornado took my house, and my furniture, and my rose garden, I said, but it stripped away something else, the illusions I was living inside. It showed me who my son really was in that moment, and it brought me back to the man I was supposed to find. Sometimes, destruction clears the ground for new foundations. Sometimes, the storm isn't the wind, it's the door that doesn't open when you knock. At 60, I learned this. You are never too old to rebuild. You are never too broken for love to find you again. Plainfield is rising. Now, I've seen the drawings pinned in Adrian's office, little rectangles labeled Lorraine's roses where my garden used to be, and a tiny note in pencil, South Light. I'll go back when the time is right, not to reclaim what was lost, but to honor the ground that taught me how to stand. If you're listening to my story tonight from a small apartment, or a borrowed couch, or the front seat of a car that smells like old coffee, hear me. This is not the end. You are not your worst day. You are not the person someone else decided you were when they were afraid or selfish or small. Home is not only wood and nails. Home is a hand offered when the world falls apart. Home is the courage to answer it. So tell me, what did you hear in my story that belongs to you? And where are you listening from? I'll be on the porch, watching the lake. There's room here beside me.